So let's talk a little bit how you felt it went. We addressed 3 different points that you wanted me to look at, different stopping points. Were they conducive to good discussion from your students? Another thing you wanted to look at was, were they staying in the story in that moment, or were they tending to predict, and also based on where you stopped in the story. And the last thing was, you were concerned about monitoring your students' conceptual understanding of the story. So let's just start with the first point. How did you feel that went?
Well, if I'm being honest, when I started reading, I was going, and then I stopped, and they were getting all excited, and they turned and spoke, and then I realized I should have read one more page, because it was the way where I stopped, it was kind of allowing them to predict. It was kind of pushing them towards prediction, which is what I'm not wanting them to do. But I'm noticing with this story, it was really hard for them not to predict. Kind of the whole story was about, I think this is going to happen, I think this is going to happen. So it may have just not worked with the actual text that I have chosen, but it was the one point where she sees Thelma. What did you think?
Well, I think this was a tricky book because of that, because there's a lot of events. There's a lot of things that are happening, so the kids want to anticipate instead of looking at how the event, the current event, is impacting the relationship or the feelings of the character, sort of more the conceptual. What is it? Is it promoting jealousy, distrust, and so on? But I like how you adjusted it, because you realized that that was happening.
I did.
What was it that prompted you to realize that?
Well, they just kept saying, as I was asking partnerships to share out, they were using some of the concepts like, oh, I think she's jealous, she's being cunning, she's, they were saying all of these things, but then they were saying, she's going to take the money and she's going to go buy her tea set. So I could see they were starting to predict, which is difficult because that is what they've been taught to do.
And there is some of that has to occur, because as good readers, we do want to anticipate. And I think with critical literacy, we're asked to stay focused on the current impact of the events, right? So I think you handled that really well, because once you discovered, I think was it Pearl in that clip, the girl with the long hair that she was really struggling with it too. She was going on and on and on. And then you realized, and you came to a point and said, okay, I'm going to keep reading. So I like how you adjusted that to that right away.
And then did you notice too, when I did stop at the one point where I should have gone a little further, did you hear everybody say, I knew it?
Oh yes, and that was on the clip too.
Yes, so that's when I knew. I'm like, oh my goodness, we have been predicting the whole time, because they were so excited that their predictions, which is what we were not working on, were actually accurate.
Right, right. I know, because in the past we've always asked kids to confirm their predictions. Not that they had to be correct or incorrect, but are you thinking in that train of thought that we want you to be in, right? Teacher directed. So I like how you handled that. How did you feel about when I just went in and started writing those theme statements?
I really appreciated that. This is kind of the hardest part about critical literacy, is trying to do both. Manage the discussion and then trying to chart it at the same time. And so they were saying things that were definitely going towards the theme, but it's so difficult to be charting my arc and charting the themes at the same time.
Right,
so
it's a lot to do at the same time, and I realized that. And then I was trying to capture, because that's where the direction we wanted to go in, and I felt that that sort of redirected their conversations too, and it reflected that how clear their thinking was once we put it that way. So what is really happening? What are the dynamics in the relationships here?
And what I noticed too yesterday, when we had finished the book and we were taking it to the concept blurb and we talked about writing a theme, they were already ready for it because of that work of the charting of the possible themes throughout. And they realized that the intention of this book was not to be thinking about animals, that it was more people related and things that they see in their daily lives. So it was taking it to theme. Although I thought it was going to be more difficult, it wasn't as difficult as I had thought after I looked at their writing pieces and saw that there were many different themes that they had written, but they were all around the concept of friendship and how friendship looks different in many relationships. So and the majority of the time.
He is, but I think that it's a good learning experience for all of them, going back to the norms of how we have a discussion. It's a give and take, and the whole thing about critical literacy is not that we each add on our independent thoughts, but how do they all relate within that group? So, and the other element you wanted to look at is monitoring. So once you did the kids did their quick writes, how did you feel about knowing where they were?
I felt much better. Having the opportunity to look through their notebooks and seeing what they had written, it was kind of exciting to see some of the things that they wrote and how they are trying to use some of the concepts, and they're trying to give evidence to support them. The writing, I think, actually gives me a better understanding and idea as far as where they are. So I felt kind of at ease knowing that I don't have to get to all the groups, that I still have that written part that can give me a lot of information about their transition from literal to more of an inferential understanding.
And I agree. Now that you showed me the samples of some of the things that they wrote, it definitely reflects their own understanding, but it's also reflecting the conversations that they're having. So I think it's a good way for you to monitor and keep assessing where their thinking is.
I agree.
Good. Any other questions or?
No, thank you.
Anything at
This
all?
is
Okay.
very helpful.
Good. Okay.